Like I spent a lot of time here. I love Indianapolis. I'm a Midwest girl. I enjoy spending time here. A lot of people like to get away from the cold. I don't really mind it as much. And also,
What if the biggest story in basketball wasn't a fairy tale, but a ticking time bomb? Everyone sees the smiles, the sold-out arenas, and the record-breaking viewership for Caitlin Clark. But a recently surfaced sound bite from inside the Indiana Fever's closed-door training camp suggests a storm is brewing. And the team's own players might be the ones creating the thunder. This isn't the story the media wants you to see. This is the story of what happens when a revolution, led by one player, threatens to leave everyone else behind. And the whispers of resentment are starting to get louder than the cheers. The hype surrounding Caitlin Clark's entry into the WNBA isn't just big. It's a seismic event that has reshaped the entire landscape of women's sport. We're not talking about a simple rookie joining a team. We are witnessing the arrival of a cultural icon, a walking, breathing media empire whose every move generates millions of dollars and draws in viewers who had never even considered watching a WNBA game before. Her final college games pulled in a staggering 18.7 million viewers, a number that eclipses the viewership for the World Series and the NBA Finals. That's not just skill. That's a cultural phenomenon, a lightning-in-a-bottle moment that franchises pray for. And with that phenomenon comes a weight of expectation that could crush a normal athlete. A pressure so immense it can warp the very fabric of a team. Before she even stepped onto a professional court, she inked a Nike deal reportedly worth a mind-boggling $28 million. Let that sink in for a moment. This single contract for one rookie is worth more than the entire payroll of several WNBA teams combined. It was a deal that included a signature shoe, an honor reserved for only the most elite and transcendent athletes on the planet. And it didn't stop there. Endorsements from giants like Gatorade, State Farm, and Panini flooded in, creating a financial powerhouse unlike anything the league had ever seen. When the Fever won the draft lottery, they didn't just win the first pick. They won a golden ticket, a one-way pass to unprecedented relevance and financial security. Ticket sales, which had previously been a struggle, skyrocketed to the point where other teams were moving their home games against the Fever to larger NBA arenas just to accommodate the demand. Their games were immediately moved from obscure streaming services to national television slots on ESPN and ABC. The franchise, once an afterthought in the league, was suddenly the epicenter of the entire basketball universe. But this golden ticket came with fine print, a hidden cost that the franchise is only now beginning to understand. The arrival of a messiah means the existing order must be overturned. And for the players already wearing the Fever jersey, this radical change felt less like a blessing and more like a hostile takeover. And that's where the first dangerous cracks in the foundation began to appear. Before the tidal wave of Clarkmania swept through Indianapolis, the Fever already had a heart and a soul. They had a team, a core of dedicated and immensely talented professionals who had been grinding for years, fighting for every ounce of recognition in a league that often struggles for mainstream attention. At the absolute center of that core was Aaliyah Boston, the previous year's #1 overall pick and the unanimous, undisputed Rookie of the Year. Boston was meant to be the future of the franchise, a dominant, powerful force in the paint around whom the team would build its dynasty for the next decade. She was the cornerstone, the player who gave fans genuine hope after a string of painful losing seasons. Alongside her were established veterans like Kelsey Mitchell, a lightning-quick scorer who had been the team's offensive leader for years, and NaLyssa Smith, another former high-draft pick with all-star potential. These were not benchwarmers. These were elite athletes, the foundational pillars of the team. They were the ones who played in front of half-empty arenas, who fought for every point, and who believed they were just a few pieces away from turning the corner and competing for a championship. They had a plan, a culture, and a clear hierarchy. Then, in an instant, it was all erased. Suddenly, they weren't the Indiana Fever anymore. They were Caitlin Clark's team. Every single interview, every news report, every SportsCenter segment was about the rookie. The players who had poured their blood, sweat, and tears into the franchise were reduced to footnotes in someone else's story. Imagine the deep, burning feeling of that disrespect. You're a professional athlete at the absolute top of your game, an all-star, a rookie of the year. And overnight, you become a supporting character in a narrative you never auditioned for. The quiet resentment began to simmer in the locker room, a dangerous current flowing just beneath the surface of the team's official media appearances. It wasn't about hating Caitlin Clark personally. It was about the complete and utter erasure of their own hard-earned identity. But that simmering resentment in the locker room was about to find a very physical, and some would say sinister, outlet on the practice court. The transition from college to the pros is never easy. The game is faster, the players are stronger, more athletic, and the competition is absolutely ferocious. Every single rookie gets a welcome to the league moment, a physical reminder that they are no longer the big fish in a small pond. But what was being reported out of the Fever's training camp felt profoundly different. It wasn't just a moment. It was a sustained campaign. Reports began to leak out from observers and team insiders that the practices were unusually intense, almost shockingly brutal. And the target of this intensity seemed to be singular: Caitlin Clark. She was being hounded, bumped, bodied, and physically challenged on every single play, whether she had the ball or not. Veterans weren't just defending her, they were sending a clear and painful message. A screen felt less like a basketball play and more like a tackle. A box out involved an extra shove, a little more force than necessary. These weren't just isolated basketball plays. They were calculated assertions of dominance. It was a coordinated effort to show the phenom that her college highlight reel, her record-breaking stats, and her multi-million-dollar endorsements meant absolutely nothing here. This was their house, their league, and she would have to earn every single inch of respect through pain and perseverance. The official line from the team was that they were just getting her ready for the physicality of the WNBA, toughening her up for the battles ahead. But many onlookers saw it for what it truly was: a coordinated campaign to intimidate the rookie, to knock her down a peg, to break her spirit before the season even began. The very players who were supposed to be her new teammates were playing like her fiercest rivals, driven by a fury that seemed to go beyond simple competition. The smiles for the cameras were gone, replaced by grimaces and a level of aggression that felt personal. And what happened next, revealed in the coach's own damning words, would confirm everyone's worst fears. Every great team has a leader, a coach who can navigate the treacherous waters of professional sports egos and build a cohesive, winning unit. For the Indiana Fever, that person is Christy Sides, and she is currently in the most difficult, most unenviable position of any coach in the WNBA. Her job is no longer just about drawing up plays and managing rotations. It's about managing a potential locker room explosion, a civil war that threatens to consume the team from within. On one hand, she has a generational talent in Caitlin Clark, a player who can single-handedly sell out arenas, dominate headlines, and win games. The logical move, the move demanded by the front office, the league, and the millions of new fans, is to hand her the keys to the franchise. Build the entire offense around her incredible long-range shooting and her genius-level playmaking ability. But on the other hand, she has a roster full of proud, established veterans, including a former Rookie of the Year in Aaliyah Boston, who feel they are being cast aside and disrespected. If Sides caters completely to Clark, she risks alienating the entire rest of the team, creating a toxic environment of jealousy and resentment that could poison the entire season. If she tries to treat Clark like just another rookie, forcing her to earn her stripes, she risks stifling the very talent that could make them champions and angering the massive new fan base that is now the lifeblood of the franchise. It's a dangerous game, a high-wire act with no safety net. Every decision she makes, every substitution, every public statement is scrutinized and dissected. Every play she calls is interpreted as a sign of favoritism or a subtle rebuke. She has to project an image of perfect unity to the public while privately dealing with the deep fractures that are threatening to tear her team apart. Her public statements have been carefully crafted, full of bland coach speak about healthy competition and building team chemistry. But it was one unguarded comment, a slip of the tongue that betrayed the immense pressure she was under, that blew the lid off the entire volatile situation. This is the precise moment the whispers turned into a deafening roar. The leaked audio wasn't from a hidden hot mic or a secret recording captured by a disgruntled employee. In some ways, it was far more damning because it was said out loud on the record for the entire world to hear. During a routine media session, Coach Christy Sides was asked about Clark's adjustment to the pro level. Instead of giving a generic, pre-packaged answer, she said something that sent immediate shockwaves through the league and confirmed the worst suspicions of many. She admitted, point-blank, that Clark got a little beat up in practice. It was a stunning and almost unbelievable admission. A head coach doesn't just casually say that their star player, the new face of the league and their franchise's golden goose, is getting physically battered by her own teammate. The phrase beat up isn't an accident. It's not a word you use lightly. It implies something far beyond normal competitive physicality. It suggests a targeted, deliberate, and sustained aggression. This wasn't just a tough practice. This was a gauntlet, a physical trial by fire. Sides was essentially confirming the rumors that the veterans were going after Clark with a vengeance. But then, it got even worse. Other players began to speak, and their words, when decoded and placed in context, painted an even darker picture of the internal strife. When asked about Clark, one veteran commented that, "This isn't college anymore." And that respect is earned, not given. On the surface, it sounds like a standard sports cliché. But in the context of the intense practices and the coach's admission, it was a direct shot. It was a public declaration that Clark, despite her fame and fortune, was starting at the very bottom of the pecking order and would have to fight for her place. These soundbites, taken together, expose the raw, unfiltered truth. The rage wasn't just a fan theory cooked up on the internet. It was real. The team wasn't a happy family embracing its new star. It was a fractured unit, and the battle lines were being drawn on the practice court every single day. Once you know what to look for, the signs of this deep-seated tension are everywhere. It's in the small things, the fleeting moments between the action that reveal the true story hiding behind the PR-managed facade. Watch the team on the bench during a game. You'll see a noticeable distance, a lack of the easy, natural camaraderie you see on championship-caliber teams. When Clark makes an incredible play, the celebration from some teammates can feel forced, a beat too late, an obligation rather than a genuine, shared joy. The high fives seem perfunctory, the smiles strained. In post-game interviews, the body language is even more telling. Players sit with their arms crossed, a defensive posture, offering short, clipped answers when asked about team chemistry. They use the word "I" far more than the word "we." When a question about Clark is directed at another player, you can see a flicker of annoyance, a tightening of the jaw, before they deliver the carefully rehearsed, media-trained response about how great it is to have her on the team. The official story is one of unity and excitement. The reality appears to be a group of individual contractors sharing a court, but not a common purpose. Insiders have started to leak more details, speaking anonymously for fear of professional backlash. They talk of a quiet, tense locker room, of cliques forming between the veterans and the newcomers. They describe a palpable tension, an unspoken understanding that there are two separate factions within the team. Team Clark and everyone else. This isn't just about a team adjusting to a new player. This is a fundamental clash of cultures, a power struggle playing out in real time. The team is trying desperately to project an image of harmony, but the cracks in the foundation are becoming too deep and too wide to hide. And the source of this seismic earthquake is something far more powerful and divisive than basketball: money. Let's be brutally honest for a second. The root of this conflict, the real, unspoken source of the rage simmering within the Indiana Fever, comes down to one thing: cold, hard cash. And the disparity is so vast, so obscene, that it's almost impossible to comprehend. Caitlin Clark's Nike deal is reportedly worth $28 million over 8 years. That's an average of $3.5 million per year from a single endorsement. Now, consider the salaries of her veteran teammate. The Supermax salary in the WNBA, the absolute most that one of the most elite, established superstars in the league can earn, is around $240,000 a year. Many seasoned veterans, players who have been all-stars and have been in the league for years, make far less, some under 6 figures. This means Caitlin Clark is making more than 10 times the salary of her highest-paid teammate just from one endorsement deal. Her total earnings from all endorsements dwarf the entire salary cap of her own team. Imagine you are Aaliyah Boston. You were the number 1 pick. You were the Rookie of the Year. You put the team on your back and gave the city hope. Your WNBA salary is under $80,000. Then, a new player walks in and before she's even proven she can consistently compete at this level, she's a multimillionaire dozens of times over. The media doesn't just talk about her. They completely ignore you. Every sold-out ticket, every